Okay. Andrea, you may want to check to make sure this is good. I think it's okay. Good. Okay, one more issue. There it is. Okay, this is the I think Andrea needs to do this in the beginning because Andrea, the Zoom is gone. Did you open that? You opened it before. I don't know where it went. So while you're fixing that, let me just say, we'll just continue because we are live. The main thing we wanted to do by having the supplemental public hearing was to make sure that you knew that we heard you and we wanted to address some of the questions. Sorry. Jesus, I thought this was going to be easy. And we did, and so I'm gonna start off just by saying that most of the properties that are in the town center zone, the subject of tonight's discussion and public hearing, have been there already. We took a lot that weren't on Route 55. We took a lot of those properties away from TC zone, but mostly the town center zone is along Route 55. And with that, came some concerns about traffic. And there's a couple of things that came up about the 3-road intersection there between South Parliament and Brusgull and Route 55, issues like that. We mentioned that night, and I just want to make sure everybody knows that we are in discussions with the county DPW and the New York State DOT. We have a meeting with them in early February to pursue some of what we would like to have happen. We talked to the county about traffic. The county has shared some data with us, which I thought was very, very interesting. It shows that on Route 55, given the functional class of our area, the traffic volume can range from 7,000 to 27,000 daily. Now, it looks like since it's vacillated since 2001, between 8,000, the highest was 10,254. And in 2018, the traffic volume was about 9,700 per day. So we've never really moved that much in 20 years. And so the county, when in our discussions with them about density and density in the TC zone, the county's perspective was, we think you're in really good shape. The feds have told us, what the volumes can be as currently constructed today. We may be worried about speeding around that 3-road area, but that's a separate issue that we'll discuss with the DOT. But as far as traffic volumes and having a real problem with traffic, it doesn't appear as if anybody's worried about that, given that they feel like the road can handle up to 27,000, and we've never gone over 10,254. So I think from a traffic perspective, having done the research and talked to them, everybody felt very comfortable with where we were and the fact that we can handle more density. Now, what I'd like to do is before we have some of the other attendees and experts here talk about some of your other concerns, I'm going to first go to Tom Harvey, our town engineer, is going to talk about water, and then we'll go around the table a little bit, and then we'll open it up for your comments up at the podium after we finish. Okay. So, Tom, would you like to share some thoughts?
We heard some concerns about water and how projects in this area may impact people's water supplies. In general, water supplies are very variable and site specific based on where you are, what your terrain is, and things like that. So impacts from development need to be reviewed by the town on a site-by-site basis as well. The planning board for Unionville would review any potential impacts from any project, especially the water supply needs. That's part of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SEQR. So that's something that's done for every project and required to be done. If a potential negative impact is suspected, the planning board can require hydrogeological studies or well flow tests. That could be testing the wells for a subdivision or anything, and any large commercial use. And that study could also include monitoring adjacent wells as part of that. So as these wells are tested, adjacent wells could be monitored to see if they're impacted. Part of that process would also include a public hearing like this, where the public could come in, listen to what the project is, and if they believe that that project's going to impact their property, they can express that to the planning board, and that could trigger the planning board to call for these type of studies. The water supplies are typically governed by the state and county health department, as well as the New York State DEC in regard to taking of water. For subdivisions, there's a requirement for every 5 lots of a subdivision to have 1 test well. So if there's 10 lots, there'll be 2 test wells, and those test wells need to be functioned, flow tested, and checked for quality. And as part of that process, people could elect to have their well monitored to confirm that during that well test, they're not impacted in their well. So part of that process for reviewing the water gets the public input. It gets availability for studies to happen so that we can ensure that there's no major impacts from the water systems.
Great, thank you. Did you want to add anything to what?
It'd
Tom
probably
said?
be, I'll dovetail into what Tom says, it'd probably be appropriate now. That's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if everybody knows me. I'm George Kolb. I am the zoning enforcement officer where the projects start and the building official where the projects hopefully end. The supervising board wanted me to briefly discuss the process in which any project, whether it's a large development or it's a single family home, starts in my office. As a zoning administrator, I'm charged with making sure that any project conforms with the zoning code, respective codes that are either currently on record or are possibly being adopted tonight, in this case, the PC zoning district. As the building inspectors, issues related to the building code that may apply are typically pointed out to the applicant. In this case, some of these projects may require sprinkler systems. And as we all know, we don't have any municipal water or sewer in the town. So that is an issue. It can be overcome, but it is an issue. Once the zoning compliance is met for the project, submission to the respective boards is approved and may commence. A lengthy process of review is done by our town planning board in accordance with many outside other agencies, New York State DOT, Dutchess County DOT, the Board of Health, the DEC, our town fire advisory committee for fire access, amongst other things. As Tom Harvey pointed out, our water issues reviewed and any proposal development is predicated on septic approval and a specific location, which in most instances determines the density and the size of the project. Again, because we don't have any municipal water or sewer here, septic and water is a huge one. It's a huge hurdle to get over. They can get over it, but it's a huge hurdle. Traffic studies are done with DOT agencies as well as our town highway superintendent, and fire advisory board may also be required. All the issues surrounding site issues, traffic, lighting, layout, as well as input from the residents with required public hearing, as it is being done tonight with your input. When and if a project is approved, a resolution of approval is issued by the board. A site plan is approved with any and all conditions noted for compliance to the approval. Then my job starts. I'm charged with review of the subject plans for compliance with the approval and the New York State Building Code. Construction can then commence with conditions for its start. This may include approval from additional agencies for required stormwater quality and discharge. The town of Unionville is a regulated MS4 community under the authority of the DEC, and strict water quality issues must be maintained during and post-construction period. All items must be completed from the approved plans, including general construction, landscaping, lighting design, and approved architecture of the buildings. No certificate of occupancy are issued until all conditions are met with the approval of the respective approved boards, as well as all the other agencies involved with the acceptance of the project. Once and when all those things are issued and delivered to my office and inspections are done, then and only then can a certificate of occupancy be issued. So that's it in a nutshell. Okay.
Thank you very much. Would you mind, Councilman, talking about your chair of the Fire Advisory Committee? Could
Yes.
you address that?
Sure. As George mentioned, the Fire Advisory Committee would also be involved with any sizable subdivision or project, commercial especially. And in lieu of that, these new regulations in the zoning have reduced the size of buildings that would be built in this TC zone. Right now, we're proposing maximum 2,500 square feet. Currently, they are allowed much larger. So all these things considered, you need a lot of water for firefighting. Without hydrants, you've got to have either smaller facilities or enough water to meet your needs if there is such a fire. So the Fire Advisory Committee will be working closely with the planning board and with our code enforcement officer to ensure that arrangements are made to have water on site or closely available for anything that would need potentially be a fire situation, which could be anywhere actually.
Right, that's good. They'll be looking at everyone. And it is important that everybody understand that the procedures that George Kolb outlined do not represent the town board abdicating their responsibility to anybody else. It is the Department of Health's involvement, the Department of the DOT from New York State, those are all required involvements. I think some people were talking about, well, we're just going to pass all this stuff off to somebody else. We are not. This is the process that is required. And in this new, these zoning changes, we have empowered our planning board to do a lot more than they had, a little bit more. And I can't say a lot, but with all the new testing, the hydrologic testing and that sort of thing, it's really going to enhance their ability to set these developments if there are some, if the applications come in, and we don't know. But it will really establish a wonderful path for them to protect the environment more than we've ever done before or had in our code before, and also to make sure these things are done the right way. People mentioned lighting in the previous public hearing, and it's important that everybody know. George Kolb mentioned the fact that we now have design standards that have been on the web, so I'm sure a lot of you may have seen them. But they promote community character and quality development through regulation of the aesthetic elements of the building, parking lots, signs, and lighting. There are other site features included in that as well. So we have incorporated in this new zoning plan, dark sky compliant lighting standards, which we did not have before, to control the glare off-site and on roads for all development in the town center district. So that is also in the zoning code. So I think from the perspective of traffic, which we feel comfortable with after analyzing the numbers, water, which is we can create some zoning that is good for landowners and good for residents because of the new environmental features. But as Mr. Kolb mentioned, and as Mr. Councilman Welsh mentioned, it's going to be a case by case. Each application comes in, it gets studied, and all of these water features, lighting things, all of this will be addressed with each one of those applications. So does anybody else sitting, is there anything that we may have missed that you want to add? Nope. Okay. I think that at this time, what we will do, because we hope we've answered a lot of your concerns from the previous meeting. So what we'd like to do is let speakers, and I think they've all signed in, but I haven't gotten a list. If I can have a list. Speakers can be called. I'll call your name. And I don't know if anybody's on Zoom. Okay, we'll try to incorporate everybody, which is great. Just remember that you introduce yourself when you come up to the podium. For those of you that are in the room, if you could introduce yourself, and typically you just list your street, and then you've got 3 minutes to testify or to share your thoughts. No one can cede their time to another speaker. Speaker will be given a 20-second warning for wrap up. I'm not sure who's got the clock for that, but if you don't mind watching that. And if just keep in mind, as if you're going to make a comment from the podium, that you should address your comments to the board, because we want to hear you, and we are going to be contemplating everything that you say. All right. So I'm going to call all residents, and anybody that wants to speak will be given a chance to speak. First up, it looks like Mr. Is it Curo? Oh, you did? Okay. You sure? After hearing all that, you don't want to? Okay.
Doing a great job.
All right. We have Mr. Frida is up next, and I just want to make sure. Oh, boy. Okay. Is Mr. Frida on? Ray, Frida, are you there? Oh, there you are. Hey, would you do me a favor? Yes, there you go. So
I'm
just
present.
introduce yourself and then tell us what street you live on, and then please share your comments.
Oh, okay. Raymond Frida, been in the community now 2 years on Dolly Lane. Grew up here, born and raised here. Been in the city a number of years, but back and on Dolly Lane, as I said. I don't know if there was any discussion that I missed previously. I just signed in, so
Yes.
yeah, it sounds like I missed something in advance. So at this moment, I'll turn over my time because I'm not prepared for a specific question at this point. So my apologies.
Well, did you have any comment you wanted to make for us to hear?
As to the proposal,
Yeah, or what, yeah, the TC zone, anything you want us to
no,
coordinate?
I think, from what I've been able to glean from it, and it's not easy to read, as you know, I'm an attorney by trade, and this is a very specific area of the law that is difficult to digest. I think I get the gist of it. We're looking to put some outdated regulations or zoning rules to bed, update them, and hopefully that will encourage some additional investment in the area. So I think I'm on board with that, and just was more interested in hearing some of the other more insightful comments.
Okay, and you may have missed the beginning, and there were some comments made about the concerns at the last public hearing, and you can hear those. That's all been recorded, so you can see that on YouTube, okay, Ray?
Okay, fair enough. And I did attend the last meeting and did hear some of that.
Good, okay, all right. Well, you can call us again next week after you hear it, and you want to say, if you want to add anything, all right?
Okay, fair
Thanks so
enough.
much.
Thank
All
you.
right, Cheryl Jandura?
Hello. Hi, how is everybody today? I'm here. I live at 33 Wisman Road. I've been here for 8 years. I moved up here from Long Island. I moved from Long Island to get away from the chaos and craziness of the city and all the craziness that was down there. I've come up here because I wanted to have horses on my property that was unaffordable on Long Island, because if I wanted the property that I have now, my taxes would probably be over $30,000 for the property that I own. So I came up here to get away from all of that. I'm here today to voice some of my thoughts and views. Change is inevitable, but how we go about it determines how it is embraced. Many of us have moved up here or lived here for a reason. That reason is to be away from congestion and city type of life. Most of us here actually commute down to Westchester, but we live up here because we want to have a bigger home for our families, more property around us, have farms around us, be able to go to the parks and not be living next to each other in this crowded areas. At least that's why I came up here. We are here today to determine how to move forward with development. We do not have to follow what other towns have done. We can aim our development to embrace a more environmental standard. Some examples, I know we have some solar farms. We could do wind powered farms. We can start by putting circles up on Route 55 to slow the traffic down. We would have, with having the circles, we would have no electric bill to worry about. We'd have no jumping the lights, the tractor trailers that go down 55. I wake up every morning like 5:30 and I hear the tractor trailers just going down 55 because the traffic is light at that time of the day. And I open my eyes and I'm like, am I in Long Island or I am up in Dutchess County? So I would love to see, actually, that would be a good start to open people's eyes to like having some sort of a little town center, at least having the circles to go around, to slow people down. Change needs to be done, I believe, in phases. Number one reason, to see if it works for our community, so that we just don't dive right in and be like, this isn't working. You can't go backwards, you can only go forwards. And also for people to soak it in and embrace it and accept it. That's why it needs to be done in phases. You have a lot of people up here that have been farmers for, handed down for generations, and they're not open to all this change of development. So it needs to be taken in phases so they can open their eyes and see it's okay to accept the change. As for housing, my feeling is I would start with some senior 55 and over, and you say, why? Why? Because with 55 and older, those type of communities, you're not looking, there's not gonna be having parties, no fireworks going off, no loud music, no kids screaming, no late nights, nothing. It's more gonna be of a more closed, quiet type of a community. That's my feeling. In general, a quiet atmosphere, and we are up here in the country. And as for regular housing, I would say a minimum of 1 acre. When I moved originally with my parents 45 years ago to Long Island, the whole upper part of the development was a vegetable farm. And then later it got developed into big development. All the people came in.
20 seconds.
Thank you. All I'm trying to say is we want to attract people who want to live here, not just use it for profit. And use it for profit and then go home to their quiet neighborhoods. So change is okay, but it needs to be done in phases and it has to be embraced.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, Karina Kelly.
I'm Karina Kelly. I live at 239 West Clove Mountain Road. And there is a really weird reverb. So I just have like 3 biggest concerns in reading like the county letter and the response and in processing some things from the last town board public hearing regarding the town center zone. When really I thought about it, and if and when all parcels are built out to the capacity that they could be, the town of Unionville population could potentially double. And I'm not really sure if that has been well thought out as to, we talked about the schools, but as to all resources. Resources are limited. We like to think as Americans that they're not, because we don't live in a third world country, but they are. And certainly other areas of the country have experienced that burden of burning out their resources. I say because if it's built out, because I'm well aware that the town board has a role in approving moving forward to change whatever the law would be to change zoning. And I'm well aware of what George speaks of, that there's lots of other processes for developers to go through that would be the state and the county and everything. And I just don't want the town board to set it up for a scenario where we're giving a green light for people to go, but ultimately we almost know that at some level it's not getting approved just because we want people to buy property that, I mean, when I look on realtor sites is way out of anyone's league unless you're a developer. For instance, a $400,000 property is actually listed by a realtor in Yonkers for Unionville at $5 million in the hope that someone will buy it on this wing and a dream of what the realtor says you can do with it. But nobody's for sure if they can do that. Also, I'm really wondering, the county had said they were disappointed, I think they used the word, that there was no subsidized housing being requested in these areas. And I'm wondering what the town actually looked at when Nan submitted her response. Her response was, we already considered what seniors can afford and what young people can afford, and we wouldn't have anyone in that category. And having a college graduate who is well in that category, I'm super really wondering, and walking around the town and seeing where seniors live and the condition of their homes, I'm really wondering what the truth of that is. Also, my concern, and I spoke about it last time, prohibiting non-for-profits. I'm wondering if we're shooting ourselves in the foot as a town, because number one, non-for-profits can be very beneficial in a town. Number two, I don't want the town board to open themselves up to more litigation because we've been through enough of it. Thank you.
Okay, Brittany Hedrick.
I was unable to attend the last meeting. I'm Brittany Hedrick. I live at 88 Westman Road. You talked about the Brusville intersection. I am also concerned with the North and South Cross intersection with 55, which falls just outside of Unionville town lines. So as certain projects come to the town board and the planning committee, I would like that to be also included as part of the scope that you go through with the DOT to really address that intersection. There's been multiple fatalities there in the past 2 years. So as things proceed and as this TC area and the zoning changes are likely to be approved, just bear that in mind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brittany. Frida Tillman.
Placeholder for latecomers.
You're not speaking?
You said I wrote myself down as a placeholder for people who came late.
Glenn Morrison? Is Glenn Morrison here?
When was the survey done for the 27,000 cars? What year was that?
I don't know.
The impact. study
Glenn, did you
said
wanna-
that it was allowed.
Yvonne, excuse me 1 second. Mr. Morrison, did you want to speak? Your name is on here.
Yeah, she said a placeholder. No, it's just, I just have 3 questions.
Then you need to come up to the podium and make your comments. We're not doing a Q&A tonight. If you have a comment, we'd enjoy hearing that, but it's not a Q&A.
I'm just sorry, I just got a chance to speak, so I'm like, oh, okay, I take the opportunity.
Go ahead.
Okay, so, yeah, you said,
Share your thoughts.
well, no, I just, said there was a study done where 27,000 cars were allowed on 55, and that was acceptable. So I was just wondering what year that was done.
I don't know. I just
Okay, and
got
then,
numbers from.
okay, and then the hydrogeology, you understand the water. What about the rock? There's shale, there's granite, there's limestone. Are we at a potential for
So, Yvonne,
sinkholes
don't ask-
because of saturation? We're not having the winters we're having anymore. That's one of my questions. The other thing is the fire department. So are they gonna get water from Timor Park? Because that's what they usually do for practice. So is that where they're gonna get their water from? Those are my questions.
Okay, thank you very
And
much.
if you answer those, that would be lovely.
Regina O'Connor. Oh, okay, sure. All right, and I can't read the last name. Who's that? Chesum? Yvonne? No. Is that you, Yvonne?
What?
Did you sign up?
No, well, yeah, I talked to Andrea. I said I had 3 questions. I signed on with her.
Okay. All right, let me just, there was somebody on Zoom that wanted to make a comment. Did you have anybody else on here that you know about? Would you, hey, come on up.
Okay.
Just if you don't mind introducing yourself. Oh, no problem.
Hi, my name is Leo Pfeiffer. I lived here all my life, 4 years. I live right on the property line of where the new, I don't know what it's going to be called, but the new place that's going up. And I have some concerns, and I wasn't here last week because last meeting because I was away from vacation. My concerns is like noise and lighting. Is it going to be like, is there going to be like certain hours they have like music and lighting all night? You know,
So-
things like that I'm
Yeah.
concerned about since I live right next door. And we also have concerns about the zoning for we're selling property for 84 acres on top of Russell Road. And we've been trying to sell that for like over 40 years. And the zoning is like 10 acres per lot. I don't know what if something changed recently to allow this to go up. You know, I'm kind of concerned about that. You know, is it going to be retroactive for the property where we're trying to sell? You know, I'm kind of concerned, like, you know, is that just going to be for this one exception for this one place, or it's going to be for every place on Unionville? Sorry, I'm a little nervous, but
Okay.
I'm just like concerned about that. Like, we're just opening up for everything now? So that's pretty much my concerns right
Those
now.
are your concerns, okay. So the town code and the town district that we are addressing is all the parcels that are touching on Route 55. The TCs, the 10-acre zoning, all that hasn't changed. Some
Okay.
parcels were put into that, added to it. And some were put in 1 acre or 3 acre, depending on what zoning was closest by to them. But we had a not environmentally friendly, not a great setup for anybody that owned property along 55. It would have been prohibitively expensive to do anything along that road, given what the restrictions were in the code. Our efforts were in order to make the code much easier and much more environmentally friendly and smarter than what we had had before. And if that is, I don't think it'll have anything to do with your area and your zoning, because they have different requirements. Town center has always been in this area. We just made it a little bit smaller. That's all we did. But nothing has really changed other than the requirements that, and there's a lot that we added, like design standards and things like that.
I just hope they're not putting too many people in that lot that's going up.
And what lot are you talking about?
The one by 55 in Brusco Road?
The 35-acre one right
Yeah.
there? There is absolutely nothing going on with that. That's the same
Okay,
gentleman
maybe
that's
I'm
owned it for
confused with
30
what's going on.
years. There could be when these changes, but again, when the changes are put into place, well, it's gonna be much smaller construction, which a lot of business people like because the energy costs are so high. They didn't want big sprawling spaces, which is what our code permitted before. We changed it to make it more environmentally friendly and consistent with our master plan and consistent with the town's interest in being rural. It shouldn't affect your property. You just have to find the right buyer. And if you have problems with noise, and those can be dealt with, we have a code enforcement officer that can help. The
Okay.
water that we'll use for the fire company, we'll have dry hydrants placed around and mutual aid from other fire companies. I mean, we've got a top-notch volunteer fire department, if I may say volunteer, they're fantastic. So I mean, a lot of these concerns we're not worried about.
Okay.
And the studies about rock and all that will happen on an individual basis,
I
but
thought,
there's no wide open season here. It's just we made it better and more environmentally smart.
okay, I thought there was like a big, like condominium going up like, by 55 and 82.
No.
Okay,
We have a multifamily ability for the maximum that anybody, if anybody's ever interested, would be 12 units.
okay.
That's the maximum that would be permitted in a condominium type format.
Yeah, I just want to see like, the traffic increase like double or triple. And I don't think this area is made, to handle like a big condominium where like there's like hundreds of people going to be living there.
We're not, that's not permitted.
Okay, great.
No, I mean, townhouses and single family homes and that one area for up to maximum of 12, and that's it.
Great.
So I
Okay.
think you'll be happy. I think a lot of people.
I think I was fed the wrong information.
Yeah.
I thought something huge was going up in there, that area.
No, and I'll tell you one other thing, and then I think we can find the last person. If Andrea could fill me in, I don't know who the last person is that wants to speak, but the one thing that we've noticed that a lot of people that haven't read it, because as Ray Frieda said, it's quite complicated to read. They think that the town is gonna set up a development. The town is just changing zoning to make it more, what I said, environmentally important and to reduce the sizes. The town is making it a lot better than what was in the code before. And then what landowners decide to do, they'll just have to come and present their case to the planning board. We are not developing anything.
Okay,
Okay?
thanks.
All right. Thank you for your comments. Was there one more person on Zoom that you were aware of? Oh, okay. So there's nobody else.
I think I wasn't clear, but you mentioned earlier, I didn't need to talk then, because the next thing I thought you should talk.
Okay, you got 3 minutes. You're the last one, unless would anybody else like to speak?
I wasn't clear when you spoke to the person next to me. Glenn Morrison, 232 Bloomer Road. I guess, first of all, let me say that it's obvious a lot of work went into this. Whoever put all that time in, it's obviously a lot of thought, and a lot of work went into this. It's how I started my last comments, I'll start them again. It's also very difficult to read. Someone on Zoom here a minute ago mentioned he was a lawyer, and it was hard to read. The way I look at it is I see some things that are pros and cons. I see some things that are more restrictive, and I see some things that are less restrictive. more restrictive. I see the gas stations are being outlawed, so to speak. Good thing in my mind. I also see the setbacks on buildings are much less than they were before. In some cases, the setbacks are zero. So we're getting higher, I'll call it higher density buildings, buildings next to each other. So again, I see pros and cons of this. I also see that size has decreased. They went from, in my estimation, about 550 acres to about 200 acres. And what I think I heard her a minute ago, it only includes those properties that touch 55. Is that right? Okay. My concern is also traffic, so I won't go on and belabor that point, but not just traffic on 55 and 21, but also side roads. Someone mentioned Wisman here a minute ago. I can see people being attracted by some of this stuff and cutting through more side roads. So this is a comment maybe to the planning board. It's not just those two roads, it's going to impact other roads. I guess the last thing I had on here was the planning board itself. I realize there's controls in place. We've talked about some of those controls. We talked about the Department of Health. We talked about the planning board, traffic studies, et cetera, et cetera. My suggestion is I noticed a lot of local towns publicize their planning board meetings, not publicize and televise them. I'll say it that way. When I look at Beekman, when I look at LaGrange, when I look at East Fishkill and polling, you can actually sit at home and watch these meetings, the planning board meetings. So my suggestion going forward, because there seems to be a lot of interest, in, at least in this development, is given all the good technology we have here, why don't we broadcast, televise the planning board meetings? That's it.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, would anybody else like to speak? No? No other comments? All right, final call. I don't see anybody on. Okay, well, I think at this point, given that we've heard everybody that wishes to speak, we can close this public hearing. No other comments? All right, well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming. This public hearing is now officially closed. We're going to take a quick break and then we'll resume for the town board meeting. Right, yeah, thank you for doing that.
Good job, guys. Good job.
Pretty nice. I just gotta sit here and listen. I don't
Okay, welcome to the January 18th town board meeting. Everybody settle down. Okay. Would you please rise with me and let's salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before you sit down, I'd like to please ask for a moment of silence. We have a very, very dear friend of the town of Greenville, our Justice Paul Penko, and his wonderful wife Elizabeth lost a child last week. And we just think it's really important to have a moment of silence and think of Justice Paul Penko, Elizabeth Penko, and their beautiful daughter, who also had a young baby. Thank you, everyone. Our thoughts are with them, family. Okay, gentlemen, has everybody received the minutes for the December 21st?
Yes,
Does anybody have any comments, any questions? May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving the minutes for December 21st?
Aye.
Opposed? No? Okay. Minutes passed. Thank you very much. As far as the town supervisor report, I'm going to go pretty quickly. Number one, I wanted to start with correspondence. We have, if you remember, we started with a company called St. Pauli Textiles. We put that shed at the recycling center so that people, we weren't getting great service from the other company we were using. Oh, I'm sorry, sure. We weren't getting great service, and it was a mess all the time, regularly, not all the time, but regularly, from the previous group that we were dealing with. So we switched over to St. Pauli Textile, and they also pay us for volume of clothing. So they wrote a year-end letter, which we thought was nice. We want to share. Dear friends, Happy New Year. We're excited to share with you the impact your clothing shed made over the last year. 37,798 pounds of clothing were donated to your shed, to our shed in 2022. This was enough to clothe an estimated 6,963 people all over the world. Based on this volume of clothing, your organization received $3,023.87.
Did we?
Yes, thank you. Yes, we did. Thank you so much for everything you, your volunteers, and your community do to support the clothing shed program. Sincerely, the team at St. Pauli Textile. And I mean, it is important to note that they take those textiles and those clothing and they clean them, they do whatever they do, and they ship them all over the world to people that need them. So that's great. Another piece of correspondence I wanted to share. One of our town policies is, from a financial standpoint, because there have been issues in other places, is to require that our tax collector send me a note every year letting me know that the payment for the tax collector's own property taxes has been made. And believe it or not, there was a town in Dutchess County whose tax collector, I believe, did not pay their own taxes for 10 years.
Yes.
And I'm not sure if they, I think when she retired or something, or he, I'm not sure if it was a male or female, but they found that eventually. So we thought it would be smart to get rid of that. And I want you to know, good morning, Supervisor Moss, I received attaches a receipt that we made our payment for our town and county 2023 tax payment bill number 1494, paid in the full amount. And I actually took that check and deposited it in the bank today, so we feel quite sure that it will clear. We'll let you know. But thank you to Kay Sago-Benny, our Unionville tax collector, for doing the right thing and making sure we follow policy, which is great. From a financial standpoint, I'm not gonna go through too much tonight, other than we have, we started off with cash flow, we're at 8% over budget so far for the month of January, so that's good. And we're at 96% of our expenses. It's a little higher than we'd like, but we've had some different things come up, you know, like just extra things that have been hanging over from 2022. We'll go through a thorough analysis probably next month, because we're gonna have more time without having a general a public hearing on it. Cash balances, 2,779,407 for general fund, 487,992 for the highway fund, so that's 3.267 million. There's still money sitting in, this is cash balances now, this is not, yeah, it doesn't include, for example, our reserves for capital projects, and things like that, which is over $1.5 million. In addition, you should know that our tax collection has started off with a bang. It looks like 232 people have already paid their taxes this week. And the one thing we want to make sure everybody knows is that we started this again in 2018. We are open on Saturday mornings for all the commuters that can't get here by the time town hall closes. Saturday mornings from 9 to 12, from January until the beginning of June, until the taxes go over to the county, if anybody wants to come in and pay their taxes then. All right. I also want to let everybody know, you can probably join that bus safety program. We don't have very many violators here. We have earned $84 for the year, which is not even one ticket, because the ticket is supposed to be $250. I have no idea who's dealing and dealing over there, but we've gotten $84. So I don't know why exactly.
Well, we have safe drivers.
We'll do research. Yeah, I mean, I think Wappingers is way ahead of us. I heard they were number one as far as revenue collection, which means they have the worst drivers or the people going through there. So
yeah.
Anyway, I think that I'm sure our $84 came entirely from out of towners. Lastly, I wanted to remind the town board in your mailboxes. The first quarter of the year is when we review the master fee schedule. And it's when we review all those policies and procedures, a copy of which has been placed in your mailboxes. So if you would read those between now and February, we'll discuss them. If we want to tweak them, great. And if we don't, we'll approve them again to make sure that they're all relevant. And the other thing I would say is, in our zoning code changes, there is a fee schedule for a recreation fee schedule. When people build a development, they have to pay so much for each lot, or for each dwelling. You know, it's each dwelling. And as a result, that payment can be, if somebody does end up building several houses, then it could end up being substantive. That payment goes to the recreation, because those people will be using time with park, and that recreation fee would be quite helpful, and will be segregated just for use for the park and for those people that will be participating. All right, so that's part of what we're going to add to the master fee schedule this year. We took it out of the code like we did the building department fees, so that it can be adjusted when we need it
more readily.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in more detail, but Pat, Carla Lemmy and I, the planning board chair, discussed it with our attorneys and with you earlier, and it's kind of, we can customize it for different situations if it's in the fee schedule. All right, that will conclude my report for tonight. How about some council and board member reports? Councilman Welsh, would you like to start?
Yeah, I've been very heavy on the zoning changes for town center area, so that's been my focus.
Yeah.
I'm sure all of us are in the same boat with that.
Yeah, absolutely, Councilman Derlin.
Second.
Yeah, you've been a good advisor as a former chair. Thank you. Councilman Giffey, you too.
Yeah, it was, we all spent a lot of time on the zoning. It's good to see some new faces here from the public getting involved, and some old faces that we know. I'm looking to move on.
Yeah. I copy that. Councilman Bessica.
I'm glad that we got a chance to address some of the concerns of the residents about what we were doing, just to clarify some things for them. I think it was important for them to hear this for tonight and to know that we are definitely going to do everything that's going to go forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good point. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, sir. All right, town highway superintendent report.
Okay, one of the big things that, I think the board all knows about our salt shed issue. Working on options on what to do with it. At some point, I think the 6 of us need to sit down and really look at the right way to go forward with it. But for right now, we've had a contractor come in.
Come a little closer to your mic.
We had a contractor come in and stabilize the building so it's safe for the crew. And just waiting to figure out what the next step is going to be. And once we get the shed empty, which hopefully will be in April, we can move forward with figuring out what's next. And then have it ready for next salt season.
Great.
So that's priority. Other thing, I don't know if anyone has noticed, but the highway crew, with the assistance of Stanford Line Company, got the new flagpole set up on Route 55 across from B-Wise. So it's ready for the flag, wherever that may be.
We have the flag.
Oh, very good.
We have the flag. We're gonna have a little ceremony.
Yeah, well, that's why we didn't push it. I believe you were asking for a culvert report for this meeting
No.
in an email I got last week. Anyway, our culverts, there's only 3 that are of any real concern. And we'll have to address them in an appropriate time.
That's, that, you've been doing a lot of work, because that was 7. You guys must have cleaned up a lot.
Yeah.
That's great.
So we've got 3 storms coming in the next week or so, so be aware. My crew will be out. Please don't get too close behind them when they're doing their thing, because they don't always see you. So, and watch the roads. And if there's an issue, let me know.
Thank
So
you.
that's it.
Thank you, Superintendent. Town clerk report.
Speaking of recycling center sales season, I too wanted to talk about the St. Pauli's Textile Shed, as it is an excellent resource for getting rid of used items. And they accept a lot of things, unlike the Salvation Army used to. So they take obviously clothing, shoes, sneakers, belts, purses, blankets, towels, sheets, pillowcases, curtains, and stuffed toys. All this just needs to be put in a plastic bag and dropped off in the large opening the shed has to offer. And as Supervisor Moss mentioned, the town does benefit by the amount that we
They have
donate.
bags there.
Oh, they do now?
They have
Oh, that's
bags in the
fantastic.
shed, so people can just use theirs.
Yeah, you do not have to be a member in order to use this. So if any friends who use the recycling center want to donate, that would be great too. That's all I have.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. How are the new sales going?
Really well. Since LaGrange closed theirs, we've actually obtained a lot of new customers that seem excited about using ours. So I'm
great.
hopeful we have increased revenue sales this year.
And I think Welsh Royal went up $5, I think recently.
Oh, for the, yeah, for their home. I
For the
had
home
heard that
pickup,
as
yeah.
well.
Wow, that was good. Yeah, and they're the ones, it wasn't Welsh, but Royal, who didn't want to operate the LaGrange recycling center anymore. So they have just decided to send people our way that are close geographically. So that's a good thing. Okay, may have been talked out. Does anybody have a comment on an agenda item? Public comments on any agenda items? Hearing none, we'll move on. Now, I don't see our library trustee here tonight, so she may have missed that message, but Josh Redinger is here to report about the Conservation Advisory Committee. If you come up to the podium, Josh, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure. So just a few small updates. So we have 2 new members. We have Brittany Hedrick, who you spoke earlier, and Lisa Lot Vince, both very well qualified and very excited to work with them. Since the last meeting, we have formally submitted Unionville's application for the Climate Smart Community Program in New York that will, if accepted, hopefully open us up for a wide variety of environmental funding. So we'll hear back from the state in probably the next 6 weeks or so. And if approved, it's great. If not, then we'll reevaluate. And lastly, we had a grant proposal that was rejected, unfortunately, for the pollinator garden we were going to put near the solar panels, but we're just going to regroup and see where we're at and come up with an alternate method to continue following through with that. So that's about it.
All right, departmental reports. First up is our Parks Department. And Mr. Gosnell has given me his report, verbally. Wasn't sure if he can be here or not. First of all, the good news is that the new truck that we ordered months and months ago for the Parks Department is 10 days away.
Oh, wonderful.
And inclusive in that state bid, that company that we dealt with, they're delivering it from Buffalo. So that's a good thing. So within maybe by next week, we should have the new truck. So right now, the Parks crew is removing all the holiday lights, as you would know. They are working completely on vehicle maintenance. We have our, they've been working on, starting our house at number 11 because the people have now left. Their home was finished up in Sharon. So there was a leak, there was some more damage from the leak that wasn't, I don't think it was the tenant's fault, something. George and I went over and inspected it, it just broke. So we are, they're repairing that. And when that gets completely finished, we'll be able to re-rent that house, which is something we'll talk about as soon as all that's ready. And then the last thing I just want to remind the board that we had approved a trailer Kings. We had approved a snowplow to go with that truck that we purchased.
Yes.
And do you know that those people at Trailer King have been calling every month, asking when we want it, but they're holding it for us at last year's prices.
Wow.
Isn't that something?
Very nice.
They've been great. So, yeah.
So in 10 days, we can accept it.
And then they'll finally get paid after all that. So next up is a recreation report. We do have something to discuss with that. Would you like to read that?
I can read that. Town Board Update 1/18/23 Recreation Report. We had a successful turnout for the week and a half of full TGTT days. This program ran from the beginning of the local grade school's winter break into the new year, and we enjoyed organized games, themed crafts, and a winter party during the time. Registration for our TGTT programs is open on Parks and Recreation website. We look forward to seeing everyone going into it next month. We are already beginning to plan out our next summer season. Information on our summer camp programs will be on the town of Unionville's website, as well as the Park and Recreation website within the next coming weeks. Families can look out for future emails from our list serve, as well as posts on social media and the announcement of registration being open. We look forward to welcoming back families to enjoy what our park has to offer.
Excellent, thank you. Now, we had, in addition to the agenda about this summer camp proposal, so our staff has come to me and asked, I mean, they've looked around at a lot of other camps and they feel like it makes sense to raise the pricing by $10. So our traditional camp is $340 for residents and $400 for non-residents. They'd like to raise that to $350 and $410. So it's a $10 difference. Now over in the Grange, they have a $350 for residents. And they have a $400 for non-residents. Beekman has a $360 resident camp and a $475 for non-residents. You guys have this chart. So, I mean, it's, you know, they haven't raised their prices, our prices in many years. So they feel like it'll bring, I mean, given that we're sold out and have waiting lists, it's not a huge sum of money, but it will help offset some of the costs that are incurred. And so they respectfully request that we allow them to increase prices by $10. And if we do so, that will be posted on the website tomorrow, as well as the registration. Anybody have any thoughts about that?
And it sounds in line with the.
Yeah, with inflation and everything.
We haven't raised prices in a while down there, so.
Yeah, you feel comfortable with the 10.
Mhm.
All right, may I ask for a motion to increase the summer camp pricing for the traditional camp, for the things that are mentioned here, the traditional camp, teen leadership camp, kids camp, just those four, if you don't mind saying those. Is there a motion? May I have a motion?
I'll make the motion. Raise traditional camp from $340 resident to $350 for resident, $400 non-resident to $410 non-resident. The TLC, $170 for resident to $180 for resident, and $200 to $210 for non-resident. Kids camp, no increase.
So I'm just, all right, is there a second? All right, all in favor of raising the prices as noted? say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No? All right, so moved. That's terrific, and that registration will be open tomorrow. Councilman, Councilman Guston, would you like to read the constable's report?
Hello, Betsy. Below is the constable monthly report for
That's a quote.
December 2022. Constable patrolled approximately 650 miles of town roads, including all properties, filling the Explorer with 60.9 gallons of gasoline. The 3 town court dates total 27 cases on the dockets, with 11 actual appearances and 4 cases were dismissed with failure to prosecute. Officer failed to show report. There were no issues to report. Constable had no issues to report during patrols this month. Additional note, constables completed 32 nights of traffic detail and the light display with 2 additional nights canceled due to weather. There were only 2 nights of very heavy traffic. Other than normal officer interactions with visitors, parking on roads, review lights despite signage and providing directions, there were no issues to report. Respectfully, George.
Excellent, thank you. All right, now we're going to move into our new business section of the meeting. And there's some things to review.
No old business?
We want to talk about the land use moratorium. I believe we covered that in our public hearing, and we'll cover that in our resolution at the end. Regarding playground at Godfrey Park, we're going to have a meeting next week with the residents. We have a playground committee, and we're having a meeting with those residents next week to review the various plans that we got in rather late in the year, so we decided to wait till after the holidays. So we're going to meet as a group. They're going to start picking the plans that they like the most and go for them.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, and then ultimately they'll come back to the town board and say, this is what we really like.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's a work in progress. Thanks. Thank you, Councilman. All right, new business. We have several topics to go through tonight. The first one is rather fast. I thought it was going to be more. So on December 23rd, 2022, Governor Hochul signed a bill that amended real property tax law. So the amendment states that every municipal corporation must send a second notice to all residential property owners informing them of the senior citizen tax exemption 30 days prior to the filing deadline, which is March 1st. So they have to go out by February 1st, which was a little tight for some people. So this year, the notices are going to be sent out by the county. And it will be, the first notice is printed on the back of the tax bills. So anybody that gets a tax bill gets alerted, in fact, there's a senior exemption. And then the second one will have to be sent by us and put into the budget. We'll have to send them a repeat of that same notice. Or not in the same, doesn't have to look the same. You can look
Same information.
Same information. It could be a postcard, like the county came out with a postcard to get
Oh,
that out
that's a good
quickly
idea,
and cheaper.
postcard, yeah.
We could take this idea next year, but it will be on our dime, and we will be repeating and sending a second notice out. Nobody quite knows why the state feels like we have to notify people twice and then to incur another unfunded mandate, but that is what they.
That's New York State.
Yeah, so that's a budget item. We'll do some quick calculations and have to add it. Sorry about that. So that wasn't really a discussion. I thought it was because we were going to have to send our own out, but we just found out this week the county offered to do it for us. So that's very good. Code enforcement officer. Everybody has gotten a copy of this. And what's interesting about this, again, the state has increased to 26 hours. Formerly, the training for the code enforcement hours was 24. So they increased it by 2 hours, which means, again, we pay for the extra 2 hours, which isn't that it's unbelievably expensive, but I think the NISBOC, the people in that, the code enforcement officers group, the association that they have, they can't for the life of them figure out why the state would increase their training by 2 hours. Nothing more for attorneys, nothing more for engineers, nothing more for related, for related fields that interact with this field. But it kind of took them by surprise. They tried to say, we don't really need it. You just have to make sure you have high standards when you bring people in, but to no avail. We are now up to, George is up to 26 hours of training is mandatory. So that too is another interesting discussion. The last Well, actually, let's say this in the last, I'm gonna switch the order because this is another interesting potential state mandate. So I gave all the councilmen the bill so that they can review it. There was an article in the Times Union quoting the new senator that we have, Senator Hinchy. And she and I did speak on the phone. What the Times Union article said was that she thought it was a great idea to have a short-term rental registry that made it mandatory for every municipality in the state of New York to submit information to, which means I'll get another report from the state. My inbox is full of state required reports. I'll get another requirement that we submit. We make our short-term rental submit to us, and I have to send in a report to the state. Their reasoning for this was that she said that a lot of rural towns were having trouble figuring out how to handle short-term rentals and reached out for a lot of help. And when I left her a message, she called me back and I said, you know, the article sounded a little condescending, like local governments aren't capable of making short-term rental requirements, should we need them? And so I said, County, Rhinebeck, Tivoli, all those, Red Hook, the Village Run, a lot of those started 4 years ago, and we've gotten a great deal of help from Dutchess County, should we want to avail ourselves of their help. And I also pointed out to her that to make it mandatory, I forgot to tell you this part, there's a $250 fine to any owner who does not submit the report, and it's daily. So if we ask everybody to tell them they have to $250 a day for not submitting their registration to this state mandated registration. So I had said that, I said, you know, make it optional. If you've got rural towns over in Ulster County where she's from, I said in Dutchess County, everybody feels really confident. We spent a long time as supervisors and mayors working with planning. In our town, we don't need it as of yet, but if we need it, we know how to get it and how to structure it. And I said, if you could at least make it mandatory, I mean, optional, then it looks like she goes, I really want to help people. And I said, well, then if you make it optional, it looks like you are helping the people who reach out to want it. And she said that she respectfully disagrees. It needs to be mandatory. So I talked to a couple other people and they think, you know, this is something that we should talk about because some of the other people feel like the state is actually more interested in understanding how many there are, who's doing it. They don't like, and in Rhinebeck, they don't like this. Somebody who comes in and buys 10 houses and rents them out as like and they avoid hotel tax, you know, that sort of thing. They don't want those investment properties. But for owner occupied, and I said, what about somebody that has a house down the street? You know, they're trying to. It looked to me because there was an affordable housing comment in the Times Union article. It looked as if what they were trying to do was force people, according to this man. He said, we need more housing, and if you can get rid of all this stuff, except for those that are owner occupied, look at all the housing industry up. So, you know, people are leaving New York in droves, so I'm not really sure why they feel like that we're so under, we don't have enough houses. So I'm not sure exactly what the message is, but it's gonna have to be debated. There's not a second or a supporting person in the assembly. So, but she's fairly out of it. So I think if there's something, like in our town, we like to leave people alone until we have a real issue, safety. We've got littering, we have one littering issue, it looks like we're getting completion on that one.
Good.
You know, stuff like that. So we prefer to leave people alone. So we're gonna talk about it with the supervisors and mayors and see if the county can do something.
Good.
But we all should be thinking about, if we wanna write something, read the legislation, see what you think. And if we wanna write an opposition letter, we should do that.
Okay.
Okay, and it'll help, you know, obviously before it comes out of committee. Right?
Good thinking.
And I also think from talking to her that Dutchess County was so far ahead of where she came from in Ulster, she doesn't really realize. Because I talked to the supervisor of Rhinebeck, for example, and she said that she hadn't spoken to Senator Ricci, but that she would, but it just seems like Ulster just hadn't done as much work as we had here, so maybe they did want some free assistance, I don't know. So anyway, it's a big deal. So the last discussion point, it has to do with the other law that Kathy Hogle signed, which provides volunteer firefighters, first responders, ambulance corps members, that sort of thing. Those folks, up to a 10% discount or up to a 10% reduction in their assessed home values. There are stipulations. First of all, and I attached with you guys the Association of Towns, but the stipulations are they have to be active. They have to be, I believe, they have to have been in service for at least 3 years. And you know, there are books, so to speak. There are requirements, qualifications that people have. We don't have to go up to 10%, but I don't know why we. But anyway, the one thing that I wanted to make sure was clear to everybody, because you know, we say, you know, when you have a volunteer fire department, it is a really good thing. Councilman Vicky wrote me right away and mentioned that, and we all agree it's a really good thing, but I wasn't sure that they understood. Right now, there is a Article 4, Title 2. And what basically firefighters can, without any qualifications, they can just be a member of the fire company without having to have so many service hours and all that stuff. They can get this $200 credit off of their income. It's a workers exemption.
They have to be active.
Well, my understanding is that that one doesn't have the qualifications that this new tax exemption does. We have to set up what the criteria are to be active. So one's a lot more lenient, you just get $200 off.
Right.
And the other one is a potential maximum of 10% exemption. But
Yeah.
they have to be active and, you know, there can be other.
Right.
So anyway, when we realized, I wanted to send this over to the commissioners so they could see that basically what it means, and on the back of the form says, if you receive this exemption, you cannot claim a New York State income tax credit. So if you get the 10%, they won't give them both. So, you know, it's one or the other. So basically it depends on the assessed value of one's house. So I went through these numbers. I gave you guys a spreadsheet that would show, if you get the $200 right now. You know, you want to look at a chart to see where is that point by which it may be worth jumping over to the other exemption, because it's going to get you more than $200.
Yeah.
So, but to the fire district, if they get they get an exemption from the fire district, 10%, and they get an exemption from the town. You know, they can, you know, if they have depending on the value of their house, you know, I added those two together. It's $350,000, $550,000 house. They would then get $249.70. So it's more than the $200 income credit. However, if they can get the schools on board, then that's going to be even more lucrative for them. And so what we have to consider is all of that. Talk to, you know, we have to come up with the activity criteria. And then it's a local law, so it would take 3 months.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe, I think our next step, I told that we send this over to them, the same package, but wanted the town board to see it first.
Good, okay.
And then we'll send it over and then they'll respond. I mean, I'd ask them for the, you know, that the retirement, is it LoSAP? What the criteria is to get in the retirement plan, and we could use that same criteria.
Oh,
which some have
good
recommended.
idea. Yeah.
And then if we use that same criteria, the one thing I want to point out to everybody is whenever anybody gets an exemption, there is some dollar amount involved, and that means that everybody else shares the burden, the other taxpayer shares the burden of whatever's involved. But when you look at this, you get quite a savings from volunteers, number one. And number two, collectively, it could be $6,000 to $10,000. It's not, you know, I mean, it's not a burden that the rest of us can't bear.
Yeah, it's not gonna be a whole lot.
Given that we know the budget really well.
Can we get a better idea of what this would kind of come out to at the end?
Yeah, I mean, if they had 22, I think I calculated $6,000 to 22 members. They don't have, they have over 50 members, but they're not all active. So if they're active,
And a lot of them don't have houses that are worth a whole lot either.
and they have to be residents here.
Yeah, right, residents only. A lot of our members, not a lot, but a fair amount are non-residents.
Right, so I
They
mean,
live just over the border in LaGrange or Washington.
yeah. So I mean, the sharing of this tax burden, I think that we would hear it in a public hearing, but my guess is that most people would be willing to assume that. to keep these guys, maybe it'll help them recruit more people, and they just have to have to be members for a while before they get it.
Yeah, hopefully.
You've got younger members too that don't own homes that, you know, they wouldn't qualify for the break.
Yeah, true.
Well, I think that the board, and, I think we could entertain another idea, if anybody had another idea.
Yeah, if they didn't have a residence, they could get some other type of.
If we're allowed to give a cash
Something, yeah.
income on our own for people that are younger and don't have a house.
Well, if they don't have a house, they can take the $200 credit.
That's right.
Yeah, so, I mean. we had to-
There is an alternate.
Yeah, as long as they sign up. So that's still a good tool, because they don't know about that.
Mhm.
It's just unfortunate they can't get both because. Anyway, that too is New York City. But, what I.
But when you look a little more closely at it, you realize it's getting less money out of the state's budget. They've given the $200 credit for years.
Right,
This will get
right,
that reduced considerably.
and it'll be up to our tax.
So it'll be
payers
another
to share.
funded mandate
Yeah.
to local government.
And you know, it sounds really good, and I think the headlines were good, right? You know, when you start reading into it, you're like, that's not gonna help them as much as we'd love to help. It's frustrating, but yes, we will be paying for it. Right?
Yeah, to be realistic.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess, gentlemen, what do you think about next step? We can talk to the fire commissioners, we can get their definition of active, we can get real numbers and calculate a real,
Yeah.
maybe between 6 and 10, if you
Mhm.
like this. But we can be specific. And if anybody knows any ideas, which maybe you can, through the attorney of the fire, department, maybe if there are other ideas that you think that we might entertain, we should bring to the table next month.
Okay.
And if you want to start,
Maybe
this
speaking
process-
to them, maybe they would come up with some great ideas.
Yeah.
That would be a
Mhm.
benefit to them themselves.
something that will help them keep recruiting.
Yeah.
And keep people, you know, with all those activities,
Mhm.
they keep us up to qualify in some
Oh, yeah.
way,
Mhm.
to get active. recruiting.
Yeah, that's what you can train too.
But I mean, we really like our fire district, and it
Yeah.
seems to me if we can be creative and do something, I think we should. It's
All right.
just that, don't you think? So.
Yeah,
All right.
thanks.
All right, so if anybody has any ideas, could you bring it to the next meeting? That would be terrific. All right, we've covered all the new business. Now, we have been through all this paperwork for our resolution of adoption. We're going to read that in a moment, but first, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve parts 2 and 3 of the full environmental assessment form that are in the packets and they've been on the website for some time. And I'd like to get those approved first. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
A second, thank you, Councilman. All in favor of approving part 2 and 3 of the full environmental assessment form, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Those have been approved. Now what I'd like to do is move, if you will, to local law number 1. Now, we're going to read this very long local law because it's important and we want people at home that are listening. We put a lot of information in the local law. So I thought we'd go around the table and everybody take either a number or a bullet point. There are bullet points, so we'll just keep going around. All right. Pardon?
I don't have a copy.
I have an extra copy.
Here. Yeah. All right, sorry about that, Councilman. All right, Councilman, Welsh, would you like to offer the resolution, please?
Yes. Local law number 1 of 2023, resolution of adoption. Town Center District zoning amendments. Whereas this resolution proposes new legislation in the form of a local law amending various provisions of the Town of Unionville zoning law and adds new provisions.
The town board wanted to update zoning to ensure that the TC district and its land use regulations implement policy direction as established in the adopted Town of Unionville master plan to consider modifications to the zoning code in the TC district as suggested by the planning board to provide additional guidance as how future development in the TC district can meet community goals, especially those related to community character and the environment, and to consider upgrading private road and driveway construction standards so as not to present a long-term safety, upkeep, and access issue for property owners and the town.
This local law was introduced by the town board of the town of Unionville as local law 4/2022, entitled Local Law, Town of Unionville, Dutchess County, New York, to amend Town Code Chapter 192 entitled Subdivision Plan, Chapter 210 entitled Zoning, and Chapter 128 entitled Fees, Land Use, relating to the TC zone subdivisions as well as road requirements and related fees. And it will now be referred to as local law number 1 of 2023.
Number 4, the purpose of this action is to adopt a local law that amends selected provisions of the Town of Unionville subdivision law, zoning law as it relates to the TC district, the fee schedule law, and the highway standards. Further purposes are to implement the 2001 Town of Unionville Master Plan. The master plan outlined a variety of goals pertaining to the TC district that have not been fully implemented. Ongoing to new issues facing the town and the TC district necessitated to the reevaluation of the development standards there. The master plan seeks to promote the TC district as the place for mixed uses and small businesses designed to meet the needs of the town, and in doing so, to ensure that the small and rural character of the environment of the town are preserved.
Okay, protection of the environment and maintenance of the rural character of the town are paramount policies of the town. And this local law is established to update the zoning regulations for the TC district to ensure consistency between future development and that master plan.
The action of adopting a local law by itself will not result in any physical change to the environment. Each future proposed development in the TC district will require a full review by the planning board and will include an environmental evaluation of that specific site. The town recognizes that there are potential impacts that may occur and be mitigated via those projects.
The proposed zoning changes, however, are designed to further the environmental protection goals of the Town of Unionville. The town concludes that no significant adverse impacts to the environment will result upon adoption of these amendments because they are essentially strengthening the review process and mitigation measures to be used in the TC district. These measures include
Requiring a conservation subdivision for lot splits or conservation design for multi-structural developments on a single lot that preserve 50% of the parcel as permanent open space. This requirement will not only result in open space, we continue to contribute to the character of the town and its environment, but will result in a development pattern that is designed with the rural character of and its foundation.
Updating the TC district purpose statement that now emphasizes the development that is the scale, intensity, and design in keeping with the desire to develop this area as a traditional hamlet oriented to mixed uses and small-scale commercial uses.
Large scale and high impact uses such as gas stations have been removed from being allowed in the TC district. Dimension standards have been updated to control the scale and intensity of those uses that are allowed.
Language has been added throughout the regulations to ensure proper review of traffic, well, water, aesthetic, community character, and other environmental impacts.
The planned mixed-use development district has been removed as an allowable technique because it had few development standards and was replaced with development standards having defined environmental performance standards.
A density bonus incentive has been added to the TC district specifically to promote low impact development, solar integrated buildings, buildings that meet LEED energy standards, electric charging stations, trails and pathways, pollinator friendly landscape, and forest and wildlife management planning.
Emphasize the siting of new structures in a manner accessible to emergency vehicles.
Added design standards for all building within the TC district that will promote community character and quality development through regulation of the aesthetic elements of buildings, parking lots, signs, lighting, and other site features.
Updated parking lot requirements to include location and landscaping standards will positively contribute to the preventing erosion and runoff, heat islands, and mitigate parking lot aesthetic concerns.
Incorporated dark sky compliant lighting standards to control glare off-site and on roads for all development in the TC district.
Enhanced landscaping requirements for the TC district, including screening of commercial buildings so they will have minimal impact or no impact to adjacent parcels.
Prevented new roads and streets that are too wide with too much pavement and overbuilt.
Added in development standards that allow for multifamily dwellings and townhouses in a manner consistent with the environment and the character of Unionville.
Enhanced site plan and special use permit application materials that detail all natural resources that may be on the site, including requiring review of town's natural resource inventory, photo simulations, and traffic impact analysis. In particular, the updates address the need for thorough traffic impact analysis and mitigation of adverse impacts along Route 55 and County Road 21. Also included are authorizations for the planning board to require hydrology studies to ensure that the proposed use has adequate water supplies and septic system capacity. New standards to review and mitigate impacts of development in the TC district on rare species, critical habitats, or listed species.
Promotion of more pedestrian linkages from the TC district to other locations in town.
Thus, the proposed land use regulatory changes and action strengthen environmental protections when new development is proposed and will therefore positively benefit the town of Unionville, and it's fully consistent with the goals of seeker, the depth and breadth of environmental topics addressed in the town's master plan and translated to land use regulations via these proposed amendments illustrated and the commitment Unionville has made to protect, preserve, and enhance the environment. The primary purpose of the proposed amendments is to implement these principles through the land use regulation.
This proposed zoning law is the result of hours of work over 11 months by a working review committee comprised of members of the planning board, town board, highway superintendent, town engineer, and the town's code enforcement officer, with professional assistance from Jim Nelson and our land use attorney from Vanderwater, and Nan Stolzenberg, AICP of Community Planning and Environmental Associates.
Said local law has been on the desks after distribution by email of the members of the town board of the town of Unionville for at least 7 days, exclusive of Sunday.
A copy of the proposed local law number 1 of 2023 is attached hereto as Exhibit A and incorporated herein with the language to be deleted and the language to be added underscored. And the town board does hereby waive a verbatim reading of the said local law and directs that the said local law be spread across the record as if it is in fact had been read verbatim.
The Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development prepared an updated zoning map for the town of Unionville as of January 12th, 2023, and a copy is attached hereto as Exhibit B and incorporated here.
Notice of said public hearing was given to the clerks of the adjoining towns pursuant to General Municipal Law, Section 239M, and the proposed law and notice of public hearing were given to the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Economic Development for its advisory review in accordance with Section 239M of the General Municipal Law. Comments were duly received by the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Economic Development, excuse me, and taken into consideration by the town board.
Public hearings in relation to said local law were held on December 21st, 2022 at 7 p.m. and a supplemental public hearing was held on January 18th, 2023 at 7 p.m. prevailing time.
Public comments from the December 21st public hearing were reviewed by the town of Unionville Town Board, the review committee, and Nan Stolzenberg. And subsequently, the town board prepared a final version of the proposed zoning amendments to include clarifications attached as Amendment A to this resolution.
Now therefore it resolved, A, the town of Unionville Town Board as lead agency has classified the adoption of this local law as a type 1 action pursuant to 6 NYCRR paragraph 617.6 and will review the action and all relevant supporting information and documentation and make the determination that there will be no significant adverse environmental impacts associated with the adoption of local law number 1, 2023, and will issue a negative declaration.
Be it further resolved, A, the town board hereby adopts the annexed local law Town of Unionville Local Law Number 1 of 2023 entitled A Local Law of the Town of Unionville, Dutchess County, New York, to amend Town Code Chapter 192 entitled Subdivision of Land, Chapter 210 entitled Zoning, and Chapter 128 entitled Fees, Land Use relating to the TC zone subdivisions as well as road requirements and related fees. And
The town board hereby adopts the annex of Town of Unionville maps as prepared by the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development on January 12th, 2023. And
that the town board directs the town clerk to inform the Dutchess County Planning and Development Office of its decision by forwarding a copy of local law number 1 by any method preferred by the Planning and Development Office, and
That the town board instructs the town clerk to maintain a hard copy file in her office in town hall to contain all parts of this law, and instructs the town clerk to ensure all parts of this law be maintained on the town's website until that time when the town code is completely updated and accessible. And
E, that the town board directs the town clerk to file local law number 1 of 2023 as adopted by the town board with the New York State Secretary of State in accordance with applicable provisions of law, and specifically Article 3, Paragraph 27 of the Municipal Home Rule Law, so that local law number 1 of 2023 shall be take immediate effect upon such filing.
thank you for offering that resolution, Councilman. Is there a second?
second.
Okay, is there any discussion? All right, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Councilman Derland,
Aye.
Councilman Gussie,
Aye.
Councilman McGivney,
nay.
Councilman Welsh,
Aye.
Supervisor Moss.
Aye. Excellent. Local law number 1 of 2023 passes. And I would just like to say that I really appreciate the hard work that the town board put in, and our working group, especially Pat Cardellini, Alan Natcha from the planning board, Pat's the chair, and Alan has been a member, a longstanding member, and we got wonderful council and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears over the months. It's been 9 or 10 months that we've been reviewing every little piece of this. So thank you, gentlemen. Tom Harvey and Ed worked on the street specs. We have a lot of people working on everything, but I really want to thank you for all the hard work. It was a burden on the people's times, but they took it graciously and was really helpful. So thank you. All right, congratulations, Unionville, I would say. Our next resolution. Would somebody like to read that?
I'll be glad to read it.
Okay.
Town of Unionville Town Board Resolution Number 2-2023. Resolution authorizing emergency repair of salt shed back wall. Whereas the Town of Unionville Highway Department salt shed suffered from a catastrophic accident when the back wall collapsed in December of 2022. And whereas the highway superintendent was concerned for the safety of the crew and any passerby in the event that the stabilizing effect of a large supply of salt being removed from alongside the walls could cause a collapse. And whereas the decision was made in conjunction with our building department manager and our town engineer to cable the back wall of the salt shed consistent with the plans designed by our town engineer. And whereas this was deemed an emergency by the town supervisor, the only contractor who was available to both quote and perform the job was Kevin W. Beck Contracting for a total of $7,445. And now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Unionville hereby ratifies the previous decision to hire Kevin W. Beck Contracting and authorizes the town supervisor to make full payment for the completion of the job well done.
Thank you for offering that resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'd like to ask for a roll call vote, please.
Councilman Derland,
Aye.
Councilman Gussie,
Aye.
Councilman McGivney,
Aye.
Councilman Welsh,
Aye.
Supervisor Moss.
Aye. All right, resolution number 2 of 2023 passes. And I already got from our inspection from the building department, I already got for my files, the certificate of compliance. It was already reviewed and I have a file saying that it met all those standards that were set forth and then.
So it's now safe again.
It's safe and he did a great job.
Good.
So, All right, thank you very much. Is there a motion to pay the bills?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor of paying the bills?
Aye.
Aye.
Terrific, thank you. Those bills will get paid. Is there any public comment on townwide issues? Not on the agenda, anything? Are you holding a space for somebody?
No, I'm just saying.
You really have some, okay.
Hallelujah for the Christmas lights. That was a real treat. I even came out in the nighttime. It was quiet. I didn't have to tune my radio. I didn't, you know where I was going. And it was wonderful. Thank you guys in the park. Appreciate it a lot.
All right, that was a very nice compliment and well deserved. Thank you very much. Are there any other comments on town issues? Hearing none, I'd like to hear a motion to adjourn. All right, all in favor of adjourning?
Aye. That's a wrap.